Hi, my name is Michelle Putnick. I'm the Worldwide Business Development Leader for Manufacturing at AWS. Today, we're going to talk about how to make industrial transformation real through digital technologies. Joining me today is Magnus Akesson, CIO of GE Gas Power. Magnus, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello all, thank you Michelle. Again, I'm Magnus Akesson and I work for GE Gas Power. And here at GE, we engineer cleaner, more accessible energy that people depend on to power growth and prosperity around the world. We design, manufacture, and service power plant equipment, including gas turbines, steam turbines, and other types of equipment, that make up a power plant. And my role here at GE is to lead IT for our manufacturing network around the world, focusing on ERP, MES, operations technology, automation, and shop floor automation in general.
Great. Now, Magnus, let's cut to the chase and talk about COVID for a minute. So I think COVID put manufacturing at the forefront of many customers' minds through shortages and supply chain disruption. Do you think COVID fundamentally changed manufacturing, and if so, how? And would you say that there are things that are permanent in those changes?
As an essential business, our first goal and still primary goal during COVID is to make sure that people can safely come to work and be safe while at work. And sort of ensuring that we can keep our core operations up and running. And from that point of view, there was no fundamental change, in terms of manufacturing and how we operate. It's more about just, elbow grease, and getting it down to the nuts and bolts of running an operation with what you have and knowing the risks. But I will say that, as manufacturers, we tend to be conservative and not want to take a lot of risk and so on and so forth. And I think we learned early on during COVID and still feeling it today that we are getting much better at prioritizing the work. That perfection, as we know, is the enemy of all progress. It doesn't have to be perfect on day one. And so just taking a little bit more risk, trying things, correcting, trying again, and sort of being a little more malleable as an organization is certainly something that has changed and that I hope will sustain also in the future.
So manufacturing is really ripe for digital transformation and disruption, I would say. Now, going back to supply chain that you mentioned, it has a lot of different touch points. How do you make sure that all of those are solved for in a way?
Well, when I think of touch points, I think, a value chain across multiple tiers in a supply chain. And maybe, an example I can think of that's recognized as a best practice in supply chain is something as simple, although it's sometimes not that easy to do, but something as simple as sharing a forecast with your tier ones and your tier two suppliers. When you do that, everybody works to the same numbers, the same priorities. You have flow and tact. And I think a lot of that can be translated also to digitization and really getting your supply chain more automated and building value streams through more integrated information flows of just driving that collaboration, setting common priorities, working to common and set standards that everybody can commit to make it easy to transact.
So what do you think are the main problems to address digital transformation across the supply chain when you speak of every single step? You mentioned tier 1 and 2. What about the rest of the folks? How do you make sure that you're democratizing this digital transformation in the supply chain also to the smaller guys, the smaller suppliers?
Well, they all are an integral part to how we operate and how we get product produced to the right quality and to the right cost and so on and so forth. Meaning, if our suppliers aren't operating on the right tact, the right quality, we're going to see disruptions also in our own manufacturing facility. So, and that is a trend that is increasing. I think we had to come at it from two angles. If I were to sort of write a press release of how I would want the world to be different 5 years from now, it would be that we all had to learn how to become technologists. Even if you're a planner or you're in finance or you're a maintenance technician, learning how to build your own tools to automate your day and to really use what's rapidly available technology to automate. We need to end the monopoly of IT and really bring that to the people, so to speak, and empower them. And that means also everybody has to go and learn how to become a technologist. So I think one angle is pushing that mindset that IT is not just for IT anymore. On the other hand, I also think that in IT we can do a lot more to make technology less intimidating. We're making a lot of progress with native services to write less code, do more configuration, and make it easy. But I think of things like low-code and no-code environments to really, again, make technology more intimidating and easier to learn is something that the more we do in that regard, I think everybody will tend to think of technology as something for everyone.
So Magnus, data is a critical component in manufacturing, and it's certainly something that is produced in vast numbers every single day on plant floors, in ERP systems, in all kinds of different applications. Why is data changing the face of manufacturing, do you think?
Because I think we are at an inflection point. Data has always been around and we've always been able to automate through it in manufacturing. But today, I think something is different. I think technology, especially cloud-native services, is putting us in a place where technology is no longer the limit for what you can do with the data. Ingesting it in real time, visualizing it in real time, developing advanced algorithms that automate tasks on the shop floor. I really feel that as of the last couple of years, it's not the technology that's the limit, it's our ability to create, to imagine, to think of some incredible ways to apply that technology and learning how to apply that technology, learning the technologies themselves to really come up with some things that will truly and fundamentally change the way you operate. That's the inflection point, but it all starts and begins with data. And if you don't focus on it, you'll never succeed in driving this kind of change.
So democratizing data sounds important. So how do we avoid continuing to stuff functional silos and kind of maintaining the status quo around the data within each function? How do we make it more generally available to any and all who actually needs it, inside or outside the organization?
I think you have to be comfortable with the fact that you need a data strategy almost for the sake of having a data strategy. In the old days, you wanted to do something with data, you had to, create a workflow and submit a request and extract the data and model it for a specific purpose. I think that's no longer the case. Data is so fundamental to how you run your business that you have to, be very proactive about finding different ways to ingest the data, finding ways to stream the data, finding out which data models you're going to have, what's time series, what's NoSQL, what's relational. How are you going to consume the data? In what ways? Through what kind of APIs? Through what kind of streaming technologies? Once again, I think you have to really curate your data very, very proactively and have a deeply technical data architecture strategy for how you're going to make it available and consumable across your organization, even though you may not know exactly today what we're going to be doing with it. I think that's key, is to get ahead of the problem, so to speak, and to get ahead of this data democratization question by simply making it available for the sake of making it available, and then the business will truly innovate with it.
So, Magnus, there's a lot of talk about microservices and loosely coupled native services. What do those terms really mean for a senior executive like yourselves? And do you pay attention to them? Are they important to you?
They are. I'll start with your last question. They are fundamental to everything that I do. In fact, kudos to Amazon itself as a business, Amazon.com, that adopted this philosophy in 2002. And in many ways, the rest of us are are following suit. Better late than never, as the old saying goes. I think they are a foundational shift in how you think about system design and architecture that is really the only way for you as a CIO or as a business leader to deal with all of these competing demands that you have. And my point of view is that with a microservices design pattern and design strategy of taking all these old monoliths, breaking them down in small digital capabilities that you can actually refactor in small bits and steps, and doing the same thing on the innovation side, you can compose digital capabilities that achieve both. In fact, I would argue it's impossible to achieve this if you don't think from a microservices perspective for how you architect everything. Also, when it comes to native services, in Lean, we talk a lot about time on product, meaning of an operator's 8-hour shift, how much time is actually spent wrenching, doing machining, doing fabrication, versus filling in forms and doing reviews and looking for information and things like that. So, the more time on product we have, and the more productive we are as a supply chain organization. And a lot of that applies to software too. Software engineers often spend an extraordinary amount of time standing up infrastructure, doing reviews, setting things up, where in the world of native services, that's all gone. All you do is configure native services quickly to compose microservices that automate processes. And so when you take that approach to design your microservices, again, you're seeing business agility, you're seeing productivity with your teams, you're seeing, these incredible benefits that, again, it's the only way.
So Magnus, how are you thinking about crafting a data strategy? What are the main ingredients?
The number one thing to consider is that, data is everything. Data is the new oil, if you will, and you have to focus on making data readily available and consumable in lots of different ways across the organization. And I think it starts with a realization and getting comfortable with the fact that you may not know exactly how the data will be used and consumed to automate some process or create some new innovation, a new product, a new service. And I think that is a big shift in thinking, is that you need a data strategy within your strategy that really focuses on that, even though, again, you may not know exactly how you're going to use that data. And it very quickly, I think it's very, very technical. Identifying all your data sources, identifying how you're going to stream it, batch or real time, how you're going to catch that data and model it in SQL or time series or NoSQL data structures, how you're going to consume it, visualize it, how are you going to make it available for your predictive algorithms to train and then deploy models. You really have to think about it as building value streams and wing-to-wing data pipelines that are focusing on making data highly curated and highly available across the enterprise. Again, not necessarily knowing exactly how it's going to be used, but as I always find out, once you make it available, people will come up with all kinds of cool ways to deploy it that you could not have thought of yourself.
So once you have the data strategy, Magnus, how do you get the teams on board so that you avoid kind of the status quo or keep on filling, functional silos?
I think it's, I almost think of that as, hand-to-hand combat, victory by victory, step by step by step, of really leading by doing and showing through example what's now possible when you make that strategy come to life. Be it streaming data on the shop floor for real-time decision making, be it even simple machine learning models that may not be all that advanced from a mathematical perspective, but they have a big impact on getting an organization to think about making decisions based on probabilities and probabilistic models as opposed to the old deterministic way of thinking. And on and on and on. It's all about showing what can be done And through that, build this sort of most infectious spirit of winning through data. And when you do it often enough, it becomes self-feeding, and you're off from there.
So as a transformational leader, Magnus, what's next for manufacturing that would be interesting to talk about for other executives as well that are maybe outside of your or of your industry? For example, you mentioned worker safety prior, and I'm sure that's an area that a lot of different industries care about. But are there other things?
I mean, there's things on the technology side, but also things from how you run manufacturing side that I think have to come together. And on the latter side, what's on my mind a lot is that in order to really unleash the technology on the shop floor and to deliver these incredible outcomes and doing it at speed, doing it at scale, doing it in real time, as I think I mentioned earlier, we have to really get everybody to become technologists, and specifically merging IT with OT. Maybe not organizationally, but working to the same standards, working on the same architecture, working towards the same design patterns, embedding security in everything that we do, and really sort of empowering the MEs, manufacturing engineers and quality engineers. I think if we do that, we can really, really propel manufacturing at GE and all over the world to really adapt technology, which frankly, we've been a little bit late to the game compared to many other industries.
So if you were to look, in the crystal ball 5 years from now, what are the, technologies that we would rely on as manufacturing organizations, or you as a manufacturing organization? Which ones do you think are interesting and will be, really keepers in 5 years from now?
Yeah, real-time data streaming to build a real-time supply chain, also that's sensor-driven through, IoT capabilities. It's very tempting to go down that path, because I think that is absolutely going to revolutionize not just the four walls of a manufacturing facility, but truly wing-to-wing customer-driven supply chains. But I will pass on that, and I will say maybe it's because my passion, my hobby, but I do believe that machine vision has incredible potential in manufacturing. I mean, you mentioned worker safety earlier, and not just doing temperature checks, but applying machine vision to do zone control, crowd control, to monitor whether people are wearing their PPE. Now, of course, also including a face mask. I mean, that's just one of hundreds of applications for machine vision that has yet to really come to life at scale across manufacturers in America and outside. For example, quality control, looking at welding quality control, just a label, is the label accurate, is it complete, is it damaged? Looking at, microscopic pictures called microstructures, looking at CT scans and augmenting human eyeballs that, again and again, are proven to be quite inferior once you get machine vision in the right place and working correctly. So I think that's an area where we'll see I hope to see an incredible, series of steps forward here in the coming years.
Magnus, your end product that you deliver to your customers, I'm sure comes with a number of sensors, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands. With those sensors and with that telemetry that you capture, the data that you capture, how does that change the relationship with the customer, if at all?
Yes, it does. We have gas turbines that are incredibly complicated machines, and they constantly need to be monitored and tuned for optimal performance. That's for environmental controls, that's for uptime. With renewables coming in, having the ability to spin these turbines up and down to compensate for, when the wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining. It's all about understanding how your machines operate. And so taking massive amounts of time series data, building real-time alerts and monitoring that from a global command and control central has proven invaluable as an additional offering for our customers. And of course, beyond that, doing advanced algorithmic analysis, anomaly detection, predictions on time series data to prevent events from occurring. We call them goals and assist. Can we assist the customer, or if we have a goal, we actually directly help prevent a major outage on the machine because of the sensor data that we saw and that we were able to predict on. So it really helps us, develop a whole new series of offerings and capabilities and relationships with our customers that we can't do if all we do is sell hardware.
So how would you advise a manufacturer on their cloud journey?
I think most manufacturers are facing what I'm facing in my day-to-day, even though GE might be big and the problem is, I think it's just bigger. If you're mid-sized, your problem is still very big, in that you have all this legacy that is taking time away from really moving towards the cloud. And I will say that you have to be really, really stubborn on stop running that legacy the way you've always known how to run it. There's always a way to move it to the cloud, not just lift and shift, but partial refactoring or completely decomposing into microservices. It's not more difficult. It is, in fact, I would say it's even easier once you learn how to do it. So I think you have to be very, very stubborn on your cloud first strategy. Stick with it. Focus on talent development around it. You should hire a wicked smart cloud architect to help guide you on the journey, because it's a can be a very complicated road to navigate in terms of how you want to use the cloud. But I would say it's just not an option. You have to find a way. You can, and once you learn, I will say it's much easier than what you do today.
So looking ahead, what are you most optimistic about going into 2021, Magnus?
I think of myself as a supply chain geek who loves technology. And as I've said earlier, it's really an amazing time where technology, again, is no longer the barrier. You're not bound by some technical limitation for the most part. The technology is there. Again, it's how you learn about it and learn how to use it. And it's your own mind, your ability to be creative and to your ability to reimagine your supply chain that's going to be the limiting factor. And what a place to be. I mean, what a great time to be alive when you essentially can go do whatever you're capable of coming up with, again, through cloud native services. I am really, really excited about supply chain in the coming years. It's finally becoming cool again. Technology is at the dead center of it. And there's just so much to go and do that I honestly can't wait for the new year to come around.
With that, I want to thank you, Magnus. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for having me.